For consistent and accurate aim, control is king. We need control over our mouse and how we move it, and that can be significantly improved with ridge clicking. To demonstrate, this is how I hold my mouse. You can see my index finger is about half on mouse 1 and half on this solid divider. And my middle finger is hanging more dramatically over the edge, and about half of this portion of the finger is on mouse 2 and the rest is on the side. This may look strange, but what this lets me do is honestly incredible. From this position, I have no trouble clicking. I simply press down and my fingertip sinks slightly into the solid sections while the rest actuates the buttons. The real magic of this can be seen in the fingertips. Notice how the blood is being pushed away. This is because I can now apply tension with these fingers against these solid sections without triggering a click unless I want to. So now I not only have my thumb, pinky and ring finger contributing to my grip, but also the index and middle finger, both of which are comparatively highly dexterous. Notice how both the index and middle finger are helping to manipulate the mouse when I'm aiming. This provides an extra level of control that is unparalleled. Tracking, micro corrections, flicking, it all becomes more intentional and calculated. Aiming shouldn't feel disembodied, like your actions aren't syncing up with what's happening on screen. By improving our control over how we hold and move our mouse, and ultimately the mouse sensor, we can make our aim feel deterministic, which I can tell you now is a great feeling. Standard grips with these fingers hovering on the clicks are excluding two incredibly useful tools from our aiming toolkit. While it's obviously not impossible to aim like this, and plenty of professionals, in fact most of them probably do, that doesn't mean there aren't more optimizations like this to be had. To summarize how this works, we place our fingers on the ridge of mouse 1 and mouse 2, which allows us to apply tension without clicking, which in turn provides more control. Now if you're following along, you may be wondering how on earth this is meant to apply to your situation. Your mouse, your grip, your hand may not be matching up with what I've shown so far, and that's okay, as that's what we'll cover next. First, we don't want to force our fingers dramatically over to a side. They should be sitting comfortably in or close to their natural position. The first roadblock you may encounter is that by doing this, they don't align with any ridges. For this to work at all, you'll want to be utilizing a claw style grip, which I have a guide to linked in the description. The quick version is that we want to pull our mouse toward our palm, with the contact points being our pinky and maybe ring finger knuckle on certain mice, the thumb knuckle, then all of our fingertips. When we grip with our hand, this channel naturally appears, and that's where the body of the mouse should sit. This lets our fingertips grip the mouse toward our palm, seating it securely in the hand and allowing each finger to push and pull against the mouse to help manipulate it to move exactly where we want it to go. When we grip the mouse in that channel, it naturally angles off to the side, which is what allows our index and middle fingers to now align with the ridges of mouse 1 and 2. Secondly, this technique is reliant on the mouse having these features. On the G303 Shroud Edition, this solid divider is a great ridge for our index finger, and the narrowing front makes hanging our middle finger over the edge very accessible. On the Death Adder V3, the solid divider sits well below mouse 1, so it's not a good option and you're likely better off just resting it on top like normal. Mouse 2 has a nice ridge on the side for us to rest against, so for a mouse like this, you'd only be using ridge clicking with the middle finger. The XM1 has no divider at all, so ridge clicking with our index finger is out of the question. The ridge on the right side is flush with mouse 2, which isn't ideal, but it can still work. And the final example for this is with a mouse like the Razer Viper. The sunken divider makes things difficult. It's not impossible to ridge click here, but it's probably not worth the trouble. And on mouse 2, the exaggerated shape hangs over the side and has a lot of trouble being actuated from this angle, so it's also not an option. On this mouse, you wouldn't be able to utilize ridge clicking at all. If you have smaller hands, you may find that the mouse will get in the way and you can't properly reach the divider if there is one. Fortunately, so long as the clicks actuate well enough, having your middle finger positioned further back along the mouse isn't a problem and should work just fine. So we need the right grip and the right mouse features to make this work. That's a lot of conditions. That's because it's a completely unintended way of gripping the mouse. This is both a good and a bad thing. The exclusivity of ridge clicking means that for those of us in the know with a mouse that enables this technique, we have an advantage over the vast majority of FPS players. To get the most out of this, we need to be smart about how we apply this tension. I have a full video on the topic also linked below, but I'll cover these two fingers specifically here. Most of our tension is applied in a pulling motion, pulling the mouse into the palm to improve our grip. It can also swap to a pushing motion to aid certain aiming movements. We want to avoid simply pushing the mouse down into the mousepad. Most of the time, that's not particularly useful. Regardless, any tension is likely going to contribute some amount of downward pressure. To combat this, and to keep our aim snappy and responsive, we can reduce the weight of our entire hand by subtly lifting it off the mousepad. The crucial part of this is that your hand and wrist shouldn't actually move. We absolutely do not want them to be hovering. We simply need to reduce how much weight is resting on the mousepad. When our hand is sitting too heavily, this increases our friction and can make aiming feel sluggish, where we can't really micro-correct and smaller adjustments lead to over-aiming. You'll need to find the right weight for you and your mousepad surface, but generally speaking, taking some off makes your aim feel much more responsive. When it comes to mouse design, I really do feel like there's a divide between how people use a mouse and how it was intended to be used. For every mouse I've ever held, it has clearly been designed to have your index and middle fingers sit evenly on mouse 1 and 2. You'll often even have comfort grooves that help to force this position. What's strange to me is that for this to work, you almost always have to palm grip the mouse, which really isn't a good option for aiming. At the higher levels of FPS gameplay, almost no one is purely palming a mouse. Variations of claw or fingertip grips are dominant. Even on mice that people deem to be claw mice, you can't just grip it straight on without a highly exaggerated and inefficient claw grip. This leads to people like me holding mice at an angle. This causes all sorts of problems with your sensor orientation, and while you can adjust to it, it does compromise your range of motion. I do have a video on how to fix that with Raw Excel instead, linked below. All of this makes me wonder if we'll see an innovative shift in design towards mice that are highly functional with the intent on improving aim. I know that's likely the mission statement for many companies, but fundamentally that's not really what's happening. We are seeing it happen for fingertip grips with mice like the G-Wolves HSK and the Zaunkönig, but very little is being done for claw grips. It would be fascinating to see some designs embracing the pulling action. The G303 Shroud Edition does a good job in this department, but I can't help but feel like it's accidental. Imagine if we could have more mice with comfortable, solid ridges, a mouse wheel that sits further to the right so we don't bump against it, narrower ends, or at least functional ridges similar to the Death Adder V3. Adding sensor rotation to a mouse's software so you don't need to rely on third-party tools like Raw Excel, or even having the sensor itself positioned at an angle similar to how the mouse would actually be held. It feels like the industry is fixated on reducing weight and making things wireless. These are both great things, but there is so much innovation left to be had. If you break it down, the whole point of a mouse in the context of gaming and aiming is to create something that our hand can manipulate to move a sensor around and press some buttons. I can say with confidence that modern mice haven't been designed with this purely in mind. Until then, we can take advantage of techniques like ridge clicking to make the most of what we have available. If you would like to directly support me in making more videos, please consider becoming a channel member. It's basically a Twitch sub for YouTube, so you gain access to emotes, badges, and all sorts of perks like a members only Discord where we can chat about all things aim, gaming, and improvement. If you're interested, there's a link in the description, or depending on your device, there may be a join button below the video. Thanks so much for watching, be sure to subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.